topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Our show this morning, I am so excited about. We have been doing a community association show in Florida for 10 years. We just got one in Tennessee. Who's just renewed with us. So we've seen how popular it was, but we got your questions going. How come you don't do something with HOA and condo associations? And we were so lucky to find one of the top community association law firms in Texas, Lang and Associates, and we have the senior partner of Lang and Associates with us today, attorney Shannon Lang. Good morning, Shannon.
Morning, Steve. Thanks for having us.
Oh, I got to tell you, I love having you. We did an hour show yesterday in Florida. I don't know if Texas is going through this, but here in Florida, we have gone through so many legal changes in the laws. It's just crazy. We did a whole hour show on it yesterday. I don't know if things in Texas are changing like they are in Florida, are they?
There were a handful of changes with the recent legislature, but nothing, the recent legislative session, nothing as different or disruptive as what's happening in Florida. I would say minor changes around the edges. A few things we'll have to adjust going forward, but nothing as big as what's happening with you guys.
Well, I'm seeing by the emails that we're getting, people are finding the show. So let's tell people, though we do it every month, tell people about Lang and Associates.
Sure. I started this firm back in 2015. I come from a pretty traditional legal background. I went to the University of Virginia, worked in big law in DC and here in Houston. But started this firm to be available to smaller clients, to have a more direct line with folks who have real legal issues. And we started to develop a community associations practice. I think what sets us apart from our competitors is that we are actual trial attorneys. We still try commercial litigation cases. We're in court all the time. We're not just debt collectors. And as far as our day-to-day work goes, I think the key for us is that we answer the phone. When your homeowners call, they're going to get the phone answered by somebody who's very focused on solving the problem. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to solve problems. We're very busy, so we don't need to take courses of action just to generate fees. We really do try to solve the issues that our clients have. And with HOA, it's a mixture of real legal issues and just a wealth of personality conflicts and interpersonal disputes. And luckily, I think we're really able to assist with those as well and try to create cohesive communities.
I got to tell you, Shannon, one of the things I've noticed, we're starting to get a lot of letters from realtors that want to be more educated. And the letters that we get in Florida, a lot of people would buy a condo and they were not aware of a lot of the rules that the realtor should have discussed with them in the beginning. Do you have that problem in Houston?
Yeah, there's a few things we see a lot. I would say that the realtors here in Texas, they're a very, very active political group. They have a lot of visibility with the legislature. So I do think there's a big effort to educate But what we find are a few things. One is we frequently find that homeowners believe that their assessments are part of their escrow. And so they're surprised to learn that payments haven't been made by their mortgage companies. Luckily, that's generally a problem we only have once. And condos are always really complicated. And I think there it's a big issue with generally, and I don't know if it's just realtors, but just generally folks not understanding that you still have all the expenses of single family home ownership. They're just more collective, and they're sort of amortized. You pay assessments today for a roof you might need for 10 years. Whereas I think a lot of single family homeowners don't necessarily save up for that eventuality. And so we find a lot of condo owners just don't understand that $200, $300 a month in assessments is simply insufficient to meet all the needs of a condo association.
Yeah, I get people complaining about upgrades, but I don't think they quite understand it only helps them, right?
Right. Yeah. Condo ownership can be very expensive, but when we compare it to home ownership, it's pretty comparable. But especially for our condos that provide water and power, homeowners should expect to be paying, many hundreds of dollars a month to cover all the costs of maintaining these properties.
We had someone write us that lives in a townhouse wanting to know what rules apply to them.
Well, this is a big question that we get. And one thing we always try to clarify is that a townhouse is just an architectural style. Whether it's a subdivision or a condominium depends on the documents. Some townhouses, which are generally just 3 or 4 story, narrow, long buildings, are developed as subdivisions that are subject to certain laws in Texas. Others are established as condominiums, which are subject to very different ones. And so when someone calls us and says, I live in a townhouse, our first question is, well, is it a condo or is it a subdivision? And we pull their declaration to find out. It makes a huge, huge difference. For example, I live in a townhouse and it's developed as a subdivision. So I own and am responsible for the foundation to the roof, the entire exterior, and all of my own home improvement and utilities. Whereas there's other folks who are in very similar setups with similar floor plans where they pay condo fees and the condominium association is responsible for all of the exteriors and really only own the interior. So townhouse is just an architectural style. The question is, what does your declaration do to set you up? Are you a subdivision or are you a condo?
We just got our first text from John in the Galleria area. He wants to know, I know this is hurricane season. What happens if my next door neighbor's tree falls on my roof and destroys my roof? Who's responsible for paying for that?
So tree law in Texas is something we get a lot of calls about. Broadly speaking, the property line determines liability. So if a tree falls in a storm through some act of God, then whatever falls on your side of your property line is your responsibility. And so we recommend you submit that to your carrier, and hopefully your homeowner insurance will take care of it. Now, if that tree was diseased or there were some reasons to think that tree was at risk of falling, then it's possible that the owner could be liable for negligence, in which case it would be their responsibility. But with storms, it's typically just an act of God. The wind blows it over. And so it's up to you to repair and do those fixes. This is fairly fact specific, but we do recommend to people that if you say, look, my neighbor's tree is dead, it's leaning, it's dangerous, that you send a demand letter to the neighbor and say, you've got a problem, this tree is a risk to me, and we need you to fix it before it causes damage. That at least sets the groundwork for a negligence claim later if that owner doesn't address an obvious problem. But for the most part, in a storm, it's going to be on you, even if it's not your tree. This thing's kind of true.
I know Texas, a lot of people are moving to Texas, especially from New York, and I won't even touch that. But this is hurricane season, and there's so many new people here. What should people do to prepare for hurricane season?
Well, the first thing we always recommend is that you check your insurance. And this is true even if you live in a condo. We think everybody needs to take a close look at what coverage they have, what their limits are, what their deductibles are, so that they're at least financially prepared in the event of a major loss. Beyond that, there's a lot of general things you can do. If you're in the process of building, get hurricane rated doors and windows. If you're renovating, look at that as well. We recommend you listen carefully to the reports and the warnings from local authorities and do what you can to prepare there. Cover your windows and the like. But, I've lived through a lot of floods here in Houston and along the Gulf Coast generally. It can be very frightening and very, very expensive in the event of a loss. With condos right now, the insurance market in the Gulf Coast is so disrupted. It's so difficult to get good coverage. And this goes back to what I was saying about assessments. Even the best coverage out there requires these condo associations to come out of pocket a fairly substantial amount in deductible. And it's often the case that you can't find coverage that covers the full cost of rebuilding. And so for those folks and for the boards running those associations, we advise that we carefully look at numbers, crunch numbers, and make sure that assessments are set at a point where you've got reserve funds available in the event of a catastrophe. But for our regular homeowners, check your insurance, see where you are on the flood maps, be prepared and listen. Stuff can be replaced, people can't, pets can't. When things start to get bad, we always recommend you're better off leaving than staying and trying to save stuff.
Shannon, I hear board meeting, I hear member meeting. Is there a difference?
There is, and it's an important difference. Our members of an HOA are kind of like citizens in the United States. Your primary right is to vote for your representatives. And so once a year, you'll have a members meeting, which is primarily intended to hold an election. Sometimes you'll also be asked to vote on an amendment to your documents. Occasionally, you might be asked to vote for something that fundamentally alters the association, like if a condo is going to sell all the property. But for the most part, your votes are to vote to elect a representative, and that's at that one annual meeting. The rest of the year, most of the meetings you're going to see are board meetings, and that's where those elected representatives get together and make decisions and discuss issues affecting the association. The board meetings are open to members. Members can come and watch, but they're not necessarily open forums. And we always let folks know that the board has the right to not open the floor to comments and discussion. And in a lot of communities where there's a lot of discontent or there's a handful of very vocal malcontents, it can often derail the ability of the association to function if you just have this open forum of people screaming. But we like to have options for members to speak. And so at these board meetings, often there's going to be an open forum or an opportunity to solicit questions. But what you don't get is to vote on every decision that's presented to the board. So board meetings are where the board can sit down and decide to fix something or hire a new landscaper or whatever issue is coming up. And members need to understand that that's not where you go to cast your vote. Your vote was for the person who's now making that decision, for your directors. So most of the time what you're going to see are board meetings. Once a year, you should get a member meeting. If your association is not having those annual meetings, we recommend you talk to a lawyer because you do have rights to call one. For condos, and particularly older ones, the big challenge is making quorum for those meetings. And so we always encourage members to attend.
We just got another text. This is a good one. This is Ray in Sugarland. He wants to know, I'm thinking about running for president of my board. Any suggestions? And I am enjoying your show. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Well, we strongly encourage people to run. It's possible that what you're really running for is a directorship. Maybe your association actually has you run for particular positions. But whether you're just running to be a director and then the directors decide officers, or you're running specifically to be president, we recommend present a positive, forward-looking message. We find that members do not enjoy drama. They do not enjoy discontent and fighting amongst board members. They tend to react really positively to people who come in and say, hey, I see these issues and here's my idea for fixing them. I'd really love your support. We don't think that board members need to have particular expertise. It can be helpful to know something about construction, helpful to know something about accounting, helpful to have former experience as a leader, but it's by no means required. You should have, as an association, professional management and lawyers that are available to assist. There's also a local trade organization called the Community Associations Institute. They have chapters throughout the country and in all the major cities in Texas that offer training, literature, and a variety of resources to potential and current board members. But my recommendation is get out, knock on doors, ask for support. If you've got proxy votes, ask for folks to sign a proxy. Our messaging there is that a proxy doesn't prevent you from voting. It just makes sure you will be heard if the election. If you show up to the meeting, the proxy gets tossed. If something happens and you can't get to the meeting, a proxy means you still get to vote and you're giving your vote. So we recommend that you just get in front of people with a positive message about something you want to make better for the community.
I'm a HOA board member. In fact, we love to get your questions. And if you can, please let us know if you're a condo or an HOA. I'm an HOA board member. We want to start finding people who are breaking rules. How do we do that?
Well, and it's good that you asked whether they're a subdivision or a condo. For a condo, condos generally have the right to issue fines. In that regard, we recommend that a policy be enacted that sets forth what needs to be done. Generally, you need to provide at least one notice and an opportunity to cure almost all violations. For a subdivision, the right to fine has to be set forth in the governing documents. And so the first place to look is in the Articles of Incorporation, the Declaration, and potentially your bylaws to see if the issuance of a fine is a right of your board. And it might not say you may issue fines. There could be language that suggests the right to have what's called a specific assessment or a penalty for rule violations. Look for language like that. Then for a subdivision, you have to have a policy and a schedule of fines published and recorded with the county property records. In order to issue fines, again, in almost all instances, the owner has to get a written notice with an opportunity to cure, and only after that point can you issue the fine. That notice and opportunity to cure needs to be issued once every 6 months for a subdivision, once a year for a condo. So for repeat violators, once they've gotten a notice and they've failed to comply, those fines can simply be issued if you have the right to fine. For condo, again, there is a right to fine just baked into the condo rules and laws. But again, you do have to provide some notice for most of those violations. The big exception is a non-recurring violation. For example, throwing or hosting a garage sale or setting off fireworks, or a serious threat to health and safety. In those instances, you don't have to provide notice and an opportunity to cure.
If an HOA or a condo association is being represented, because believe it or not, we've been asked this twice, can they leave that firm representing them and go to a firm like yours?
Absolutely. Lawyers in the state of Texas are hired at will. We cannot work on contingency, meaning that we get a percentage of what you recover for your assessment collections. There are different rules for firing contingency fee attorneys, but in HOA, nope, we work by the task or by the hour and can be terminated at will with notice or without for any reason or no reason at all. We are familiar with most of the lawyers in town that do this work, and people move law firms frequently, and we know who's easy to get files from and who isn't. But no, if you're unhappy with your representation, call around, interview lawyers, make a change.
Shannon, how much of your firm is dedicated to community association?
At this point, about 80%. We maintain a small commercial litigation practice just to keep our skills set up and for existing clients. But we are almost primarily doing community association law, a big mix of subdivisions and condos. And we tend to have a lot of condos or boards in crisis. I think that part of that probably comes from my background as a social worker, which is what I did before I went to law school. But we currently are spending a good amount of time working with boards that aren't getting along, or communities where there's a couple of very disruptive homeowners, to just try to smooth things out, bring people together, and work on having a more cohesive leadership structure. But we do a lot of community association law.
Reason why I brought that up is because we have shows like this all over the country, and I have noticed there's a lot of firms out there that say on their shingle, community association, business law, real estate law, criminal law, bankruptcy law. And your firm really concentrates in this one area, though you have some other things you do. But people have to be careful. This is not a part-time position. What you do, what your firm does, Shannon, for these associations is major, because there's so many laws out there. Tell people, and I'm setting you up for this, tell people why they should hire your firm.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I think you're right. I mean, we do run across folks who do a couple of HOA, have a couple HOA clients, and we see the errors that can arise. And we see some folks who are very, very in bed with the management companies and sort of put their interest over the interests of their associations. It's, I wouldn't say the most complicated field of law. It's not antitrust or securities regulation, but it's nuanced. And HOA law pulls from a variety of places in the statutory code and common law. And I think a good association lawyer also has some basic understanding of vendor relations, contract law, employment issues. And a lot of our associations are also employers. And so I think what we bring to the table versus a lot of our competitors is that broader focus on representing the entirety of an HOA's issues. We're not just debt collectors, and a lot of our associations really just competitors really just collect debt. And if anything gets complicated, they throw up their hands. Or if you have an issue, if the board has an issue with the management company, they say, well, we won't get involved because those management companies are gatekeepers to clients. And we don't do that. We take very seriously our role as the association's lawyer. We represent this entity, not the board or a board member or the manager or the members generally, but this entity that has very important responsibilities to the community. And so between that and the fact, again, that we just pick up the phone and try to solve problems, I think that folks who contact us tend to have really good experiences. Homeowners who get stuck in our office because they didn't pay their assessments or they have a violation tell us repeatedly that, well, no one wants to have to be in this situation. They felt respected, they felt that their time was honored, and they got through this in a way that was simple and not overly complicated and didn't require them repeating their story 10 and 15 times to 10 or 15 different people because, the person they talked to last time doesn't work there anymore. We have a stable staff of solution-oriented people.
Tell people how they can reach your office.
Yeah, we're available by phone, 832-479-9400. We're on the internet at shannonlanglaw.com, Lang. And if you Google Shannon HOA Lawyer Houston, I pop right up. So I
love the way you explain everything, Shannon. And Shannon will be back again with us next month. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again. Have a good week, Shannon.
Thanks, Steve.
That's attorney Shannon Lang in Houston, Community Association Law. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.